Thanks so much. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Conference, it's good to be back. Meeting old friends and coming together as a Conservative family to reinforce our common values. These have been tough times for our country, but despite the unprecedented challenges we have faced, this government has remained grounded and guided by our Conservative values and the good sense of the British people. It has brought the very best of us out as a nation, from the carers to the volunteers, the scientists to the doctors and nurses, and to the brave men and women of our police and our fire services who've risen to the challenges presented to us by COVID with great professionalism and commitment. And our thanks to them go out from this hall today. Two years ago here in Manchester, I said that the British people would always be my compass and that I would deliver on their priorities. And I make that commitment to you today again. The British people want a government on their side, keeping them safe. All our thoughts remain with Sarah Everard's family and friends. Her murderer, whose name I will not repeat, was a monster. His explicit intention was to instill fear and terror into women and girls. I say this as Home Secretary, but also as a woman, that such unconscionable crimes and acts of violence against women and girls have no place in our society. And that is why I have redoubled my efforts to ensure that women and girls feel safe. Since I became Home Secretary, cross-government funding to tackle these abhorrent crimes has trebled in relation to any other two-year period. The Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill extends whole life orders to child murderers and ends automatic halfway release for serious sexual and violent offenders. And nearly a year ago, I launched the first ever survey of women and girls on tackling the crimes that disproportionately affect them. In the wake of Sarah's tragic murder, I reopened that survey. 180,000 women and girls were brave enough to share some of their stories with me, some for the first time. Their experiences informed my Tackling Violence Against Women and Girls strategy, which I launched earlier this year. And I have wasted no time in putting that plan into action. I want to thank my colleagues. I want to thank my colleagues and thank Nimco Ali, who is here with us today, for her pioneering work on tackling these abhorrent crimes. And this month, our country's first ever dedicated national police officer for reducing and preventing crimes against women and girls will get to work, providing national direction to the police. Deputy Chief Constable Maggie Blythe, accountable to you through me. This government will always back the brave men and women of our police. And it is because of the strong relationship with the police that I can ask those difficult questions and also support them to do better. Recent tragic events have exposed unimaginable failures in policing. It is abhorrent that a serving police officer was able to abuse his position of power, authority, and trust to commit such a horrific crime. The public have a right to know what systematic failures enabled his continued employment as a police officer. We need answers as to why this was allowed to happen. I can confirm today that there will be an inquiry to give the independent oversight needed to ensure that something like this can never happen again. Later this year, I will launch the first ever standalone domestic abuse strategy. I'm undertaking a review of the police management of registered sex offenders to stop paedophiles and rapists, including members of grooming gangs, from returning to the very communities that they tore apart. I'm outlawing the sickening practice of virginity testing, a barbaric, medieval and invasive practice exclusively performed on women, often to control them, and often without their consent. Well, not under this Home Secretary. Women and girls have said enough is enough. And the Conservative Party agrees. The safety and security of our citizens is paramount. Without safety and security, there can be no freedom. And our approach to crime will always be based on seeking justice for victims and survivors, ensuring that perpetrators feel the full force of the law. We have delivered more powers to the police so that they can do exactly that, including stop and search. We're toughening sentences for the worst and most serious offenders, including terrorists, rapists, and child murderers. We are nearly halfway through to recruiting 20,000 additional police officers. And this summer, we launched our new Beating Crime plan to cut murder, serious violence, neighbourhood crime, including antisocial behaviour. Under my watch, we have seen some of the biggest law enforcement raids in our country's history, with our crackdown on county lines drug gangs resulting in over 1,000 county lines shut down, millions of pounds of cash seized, and over 6,000 criminals arrested. We are cutting the head off the snake and taking down those kingpins behind these deadly supply lines. And that's thanks to my brilliant ministerial team. We are delivering for the British people. Drug abuse and addiction ruins communities. It devastates lives and tears families apart. Drugs are also responsible for the crimes that I am committed to cutting. Today, I am announcing the expansion of drug testing on arrest across all 43 police forces in England and Wales. Those who test positive as confirmed drug users will be supported to tackle their drug abuse and regain their independence. But for those unwilling to address their drug misuse, there will be the harshest possible legal sanctions and consequences. So while Sir Keir Starmer backs calls to decriminalise drugs, we will take the tough action needed to build back safer and continue to put the interests of our country first. Our values embody service before self. And this can be neatly defined by the Hindu word seva, which can mean service, commitment, and dedication to others. Ensuring the best interests of our country come first is what drives me each and every day. That is my responsibility, and that is my service, and that is our party. And it is because of our commitment to putting the needs of the hard-working, often silent majority first, that I will not tolerate the so-called eco-warriors trampling over our way of life and draining police resources. Their actions over recent weeks have amounted to some of the most self-defeating environmental protests that this country has ever seen. The freedom to protest is a fundamental right our party will forever fight to uphold. But it must be within the law. Measures already going through Parliament will ensure that these criminals can be brought to justice for the disruption that they are causing. But we are going to go further to close down the legal loopholes exploited by these offenders. So today I can announce that we will also increase the maximum penalties for disrupting a motorway, criminalise interference with key infrastructure such as roads, railways, and our free press, and give the police and the courts new powers to deliver so that they can deal with the small minority of offenders intent on travelling around the country, causing disruption and misery to our communities. This Conservative government is taking the tough decisions needed to cut crime and make our streets safe.